Is this thing on? You guys ready to celebrate? Are you sure you're ready? You ready for this? Yeah. Dance. You're like, Steve, wait, is this a Business Central live stream? Or this is a dance party? Come on, you're confusing me. Okay. Okay, let me try to turn this off. One moment. Okay, there goes reverb. Fade out. Okay, give me a few minutes to straighten this mess out. You would not believe how hard it was to pull that off. And all I can say is I'm dedicated, right? Okay, so one moment. Let me turn off the disco ball. Okay, let me get some green screen set up here. Okay, and Studio 4, 3. There we go. Little known fact. Is this thing working? Let me just check audio here. When you click away from a PowerPoint presentation, your animations stop working. So, you know how hard it was to get this to work during the intro? Like, I literally had to have it play, record it, do a separate scene in my live streaming software, music separate, like, just don't get me started. Anyway, okay, enough silly antics. The occasion is the celebration of the longest support case I have ever had. And I would never wish to inflict this punishment upon anyone else. It was horrific. So, although it shouldn't have been an issue, I shouldn't have had to suffer for a whopping 8 weeks with a broken Microsoft Partner Network account. It took, I think, 5 or 6 weeks just to be able to log in again. And then it took an additional 2 to 3 weeks to finally get access to our commercial marketplace offer where we have an app source listing. Hold up, let me turn off the audio on my end here. It's, okay. Is this thing working? Okay, it looks like I'm back to normal. So, sorry. Okay, so anyway, 58 days. I had to go to my calendar and count it. And during that 58 days, I literally forgot what our product was. I forgot what we were working on. I forgot what our next release was that we are trying to push when I noticed that I had no access. And I mean, 58 days of multiple, I think I had 5 or 6 support tickets. And I would get emails one day later saying, oh, well, yeah, you know, it looks like you have some problem. We are going to close this case. They would summarily close the ticket as their first response. They would send me this garbage copy and paste that, like, some internal documentation about what I was supposed to be doing. The Microsoft MPN support organization is an unmitigated disaster. And I hope no one has to get MPN support It is so bad. It is 100% outsourced from what I could tell. There apparently is no Microsoft oversight or management of the process. I have no problem just railing on that absolutely unmanaged, incompetent organizational structure. It is a disaster. So finally, I got to someone who seemed to care, or at least didn't just immediately close the case. Talked to the back end team, sent me to another department, talked to another guy who seemed to kind of see the problem at least. And it took them, I think it took them like 2 or 3 weeks to find the issue and then another week to solve the issue. It was some record of our organization in some database somewhere, the AMS database, whatever that's supposed to mean. He's like, oh, your AMS record is wrong. I'm like, it had nothing to do with anything. It's some internal database they have. So it's some database that determines whether I have access to my marketplace offer. So they finally fixed it. It didn't break everything else. And finally, 58 days later, hence my celebration, because seriously, we had to look through our Git commit history to figure out what we were doing a month ago, like over a month ago. We've completely forgotten. So we're trying to resume this, trying to push a new release and all that stuff. So anyway, that's why I'm celebrating. But I welcome all of you to celebrate regardless of not having a nightmare support case. Okay, what's next? Enough about me. So I cannot pronounce his name. Hepe. Yeah, I'm assuming it's not Jeppe. Bylov, he thought that what would be interesting would be a podcast of this circus that I run here. And it is amazing that I've done this 80 times apparently. I can't believe that. It feels like it's my first attempt at doing this every time. Probably because I do silly stuff like play music and wear Elvis glasses. But yeah, so I was like, it never occurred to me to do this as a podcast. Like I think of podcasts as some other thing. But then I realized I've been listening to some podcasts that it's a meeting between, say, 2 people, someone being interviewed, and they record it on video, but they also record a separate audio track, and they post the full interview on YouTube, and then they publish the audio as a podcast. So I thought, okay, well, I'm listening to these. There must be like some market for this. And I think Waldo said that it's convenient for him when he drives in his car to listen to the podcast. So I was like, okay, I do the exact same thing. So I'll listen to, when I'm doing a chore, cooking, laundry, whatever, driving, and I'll be listening to the podcast. And if I have a chance, I may watch the video as well. So I was like, okay, let's look into this. So I asked a friend who has done a podcast. I knew nothing about podcasting. And it's this weird world where like you go to some platform that hosts the audio recording, and then they help facilitate getting listed on these various podcast directories. And then I thought, well, why would I go through this paid service? And the reason is, 1, they host the audio for you. 2, they really do help you facilitate getting listed. And then most importantly is they provide you with metrics. They monitor the download somehow. They pull from all of these feeds. They give you all sorts of metrics as to what's going on. And you can see how much activity you have in here. And they also do things like if you're inserting dynamic ads. So for instance, maybe this month in this podcast, you'll have an ad for this coffee. And then next month, you may have an ad for this VPN service, the typical ads that you'll see on YouTube. So they do stuff like this. And so that's why it makes it worthwhile. Some of them have free tiers. This one, it's like 3 hours for $12 a month or something like that. So 3 hours a month of podcasts for $12 a month. And if I have 4 hours or more, I pay $3 or $4 more for that additional hour. So they have multiple plans, but I'm starting out with, I think, their first or second tier, and we'll see how it goes. And I'll monitor the downloads, see if it's accurate, and if there's 10 or more downloads per podcast, I guess I'll come up with some criteria. I'll continue to do it, but if it's only 2 or 3 people, I probably won't do it. So let me know if you want to listen to this as a podcast. It's not too much work for me, but I'm right now I'm separately recording a WAV file, so that's a dedicated audio file. The first episode I posted just raw, just like totally unedited, but I found that Audacity has a feature that'll automatically cut out dead spaces. So when I'm setting up the green screen just now, where I've silence as I'm switching between slides, it'll cut that out automatically. But I need to see if it's going to mess up the audio, like if it's not reading the bit rate right and messes up the speed. So it could be involved. I'll see. But my goal is very little maintenance. If it becomes a lot of maintenance, I just don't have time. But we'll see. So let me know if you listen to the podcast. Just ping me on Twitter, reply to the YouTube. I don't think I can get feedback directly on the podcast. There's no comment feature on podcasts. So ping me on Twitter, YouTube, or my blog or something like that. Let me know if you listen to the podcast. Okie dokie. Moving on. Jeremy Viska, he has a new company called Spare Brained Ideas, and he has released an app called Spare Brained Licensing. It is available on AppSource, and it helps new or small ISVs or independent developers who want to publish an app on AppSource. It helps manage the subscription process. So a customer can go to the Gumroad website, purchase your product or your app, either for a fixed fee or a monthly subscription. They will get a license key emailed to them. They will paste that into the app in Business Central, and that will activate the subscription. And then if they want to stop, they can cancel those payments and their app will stop working. And there are various ways your AL code can call the Spare Brain licensing, like code units or extension, and to manage what features you enable, disable, if you have a trial period, all sorts of things. He's thought of a lot of stuff in this application. And I forgot to put the link to GitHub, but it is available under his Spare Brained Ideas GitHub account or repository. There is a Spare Brain licensing GitHub repo where you can download and review the full code. And so I reviewed it, and I think a lot of interesting functionality. The only sticking point for me, not with his app, but right now, it's currently tied to Gumroad, and that's via Code Unit, so you can swap that out. So he's designed it so you could use Gumroad, Stripe, Paddle, one of any other, your own, subscription validation repository. Maybe that's an Azure function or something. So it is interchangeable. Right now, it's just Gumroad, and I don't know if Gumroad is going to work for my company and my extensions the way I want to do it. And one specific reason, I need to ask Jeremy how he's dealing with this, but I'm in the US, and as you may know, US companies are, in terms of payables, they are the dinosaurs of the payables world. And I mean the world, because they will send you a paper check. And they will mail you a paper check to another country, not even realizing that other countries have no idea what to do with a paper check. So we have paper checks, we have ACH, which is a North American electronic payment process, and then we do have credit cards. But I'd say a majority of my customers currently pay via credit card, let's say 60 to 75%, but I still regularly get a check in the mail, and it kills me. And so I need a way to deal with that. And I can't tell whether Gumroad allows me to say, oh, this customer paid me a check. I want to activate their subscription on Gumroad because that's the validation process. Or maybe I need to go on there and generate a license key and send it to them. But how do I manage an expiration date? So those are the questions that I'm facing right now as a US ISV. It's kind of messy. So if you are interested in developing for AppSource and having a subscription management tool, this is one option. There is the old Stripe integration, which is kind of equivalent, but yeah, I don't know. We're all working through this and it's not as easy as anyone would like. So next up, we have a blog post from Kristen Hosman. KristenHosman.com. She's also on Twitter at Kristen Hosman, Hosman, and she is talking about the North American bank reconciliation process, which I don't know what the North American method is versus the non-North American method is, but she mentions non-auto match. So if you are having to do selective, I'm assuming selective bank reconciliations, she has a new blog post on that. And apparently it can be kind of challenging. She's worked through a few issues, errors. I don't know if there was a bug at some point, but this is as of December 2021. So if you're in North America dealing with bank recs, check out her blog post. Next up in blogs, we have a cool blog from Alberto, and he is writing this blog based on a live stream that I did a while back it was about the new project that it's kind of still going on about automatically generating data, and I had a UI in .NET that had a bunch of buttons on the page. When I realized that Business Central didn't really have a button control that I could put on a page so that a user could click one of 5 buttons and say, do this, do that, do this. It was more like the actions bar up top. And so part of that live stream, or during that live stream, a few people, I think including Stefan, mentioned, well, you can have a link on the page, like a URL type hyperlink, that you click on to trigger an action or perform an action. So that was a concept discussed, but Alberto has written it up in a blog post. So that is pretty cool. So check out his blog at businesscentralgeek.com, and it's his actions in line post. So that's pretty neat. I'm sure I will be doing that at some point, if not for my data generation tool, for something else. Moving on to the dark side. Jeremy Viska mentioned, I don't recall seeing this, but he has re-mentioned that you can display Business Central in a web browser, in Edge, I guess, in dark mode using an Edge setting. And so this is what it looks like in dark mode. It is very cool looking. It's very sharp looking. I personally don't use dark mode by choice. Like if the default is light mode, I rarely switch over to dark mode just because I'm old and it's not as high contrast for me. But I do notice at night, I do prefer that my phone isn't blasting white light on me. And I prefer when the app will automatically go dark in low light environments or bright in bright environments. But if you are into the dark mode thing and want to go to the dark side, you can. You can check out his tweet. It's some Edge flag or whatever they call the Edge settings, and you just switch it to auto dark mode, and it automatically switches white to black, I guess, and inverts the white and black colors. So looks pretty sharp, I think. Another blog post. This is a cool, neat little feature from Willem, if I'm saying that right. And he does some really neat projects with all sorts of different languages and tools, not all Business Central related, but some very clever stuff. So check out his blog post and his Twitter feed as well. And this project I thought was super cool. You know, it's one of those clever things that you're like, it didn't occur to me. So he has created a sample JavaScript to capture a graphical signature via web browser, or it should work on the Business Central mobile app. And you can sign a document, click sign, and it will save that graphic of the digital signature. I think that's super cool. So check it out at integrated.ee, add Business Central, add signature to page on Business Central. So really neat stuff. Next, we have Natalie's BC Docs tip. And if you didn't know, Natalie is our in-house BC Docs librarian. She has some magical method of finding this stuff in BC Docs. Obviously, she searches, but how she finds the new content in the docs, and she finds really cool tips and tricks. So she found a whole series of ones. How to reduce database locking, making edit in Excel faster, which is interesting. I want to see like what that is. And then she has a whole thread here, non-clustered column store indexes, which I saw a discussion on Twitter about that. Like, is that something we do in SaaS, or is that only on-prem? Copy of production or sandbox environment in Admin Center, the usage of plus equals, minus equals, star equals, and slash equals. I need to read that because I'm from the .NET world. I'm not familiar with those. Plus and minus, I'm familiar with, not star and slash. And then compiler error, argument should be a valid field type. So check it out. Whole thread of interesting docs articles that I should probably be aware of, so I need to read. Kenny has some more new KQL queries for App Insights. So database lock timeouts caused by a number series. That's interesting. That doesn't sound good. SQL queries and AL code that hold database locks. And many joins, reports that can be tuned to read data more set-based. Which AL methods are the slowest? So these sound very cool. The challenge I have with kind of testing these and getting familiar with them is I only have test environments and sandboxes. So I don't know how to trigger these to kind of play with them and simulate them. I suppose I could write some really bad AL, which I'm probably very good at, and induce these situations. But so when I run a lot of KQL queries or look at App Insights, there's just no activity. So I'm like, how do I learn this stuff? And it's kind of like one of those things where you just need to know about it. And so if you're having a performance issue, maybe you run these to see if one of these is the issue. So like, how would I guess I would know if there was a lock timeout caused by a number series. Like I tab off the number series and I get a timeout or something. But a lot of these things are more like, okay, we're having performance issues. Which KQL query do I need to run? And you need to know about the 20 of them or whatever. So I want to play with them. I don't know how to simulate them. So I don't know, maybe I'll ask Kenny to come up with the worst AL extension possible. You install that and it will have a page that will cause these performance problems so that you can see the behavior, see the KQL and the App Insights telemetry and see what that looks like. I don't know. I'd probably be pretty good at causing these problems unintentionally, but not intentionally. I just got an email this morning that version 19.1 updates are rolling out again. And apparently they started this in early November or late October, early November, somewhere around that. Then they paused them for some reason. And I just got this email this morning notifying me that they will start around December 10th through the 24th. So that 2-week window. So jump in your admin center, schedule your updates, and you're going to 19.1. Fingers crossed, assuming nothing else goes wrong. Business Central 2021 Wave 2 launch event. I believe this started in October. And these were the videos, there are 15 videos that were recorded by the Business Central team. And I admit I've only watched part of one. There are 15 of them. Let's assume that's 15 hours. That's a lot of content. So I am positive that I need to watch these. I am positive that there is valuable content that I need to know and stuff I will value. So what is the answer to forcing myself to watch videos that I will find informative? And I tweeted that I'm going to like force myself to sit in my sofa and recline back with a bag of popcorn and watch these videos for 2 days straight. I don't know what else there is. So maybe I'll do that. Just it's tough, right? Let's say it's 15 hours. That's a lot of time. Now, the kicker on here is for some reason this year, they have an expiration date available on demand through December 31st. I don't know why they did that. Maybe they don't want to deal with the hosting of those videos because it is on a hosted platform. I get that. Maybe it's to produce kind of an artificial deadline to encourage people to do it. I totally get that as well. Why they don't just post them on YouTube is beyond me. Like, YouTube is free. Post them there. I don't know. So that question just started on Twitter. So feel free to respond to that thread on Twitter where I posted about these videos. And in the book category, we have a whole bookstore for Business Central growing. In addition to all the other books that have been going on, these are just some updates or reminders. Eric Hogard has released a new version of an updated version of his Business Central Field Guide. It is now 396 pages. So it is a substantial field guide, and it includes updates for Business Central 2021 Wave 2, aka version 19. If you purchase online through his LeanPub link, you should have received an email with that update. So I was notified automatically the update. I just download the latest PDF, so super convenient. If you got a print copy, I think you're out of luck. You either need to order a new version or just purchase electronically. Next up, Jeremy Viska. Among the million things he's doing, he also has a book. It is Your First 20 Hours with Business Central, which I need to read. So that's 20 more hours that I need to invest in learning because I totally need to learn this stuff. This is like end user, walk through the application, how to do basic stuff like this. I just glanced at a page, accounting periods. I'm vaguely familiar with accounting periods. I've never set them up. I need to learn them because in the Dynamics GP world, they're totally different than Business Central. In just fundamentally how Business Central deals with accounting periods versus Dynamics GP. So I need to learn this. So I need to read this book, 289 pages. He says it's 20 hours. It may take me longer. So if you're not aware of that, sparebrain.gumroad.com, electronic book, purchase and download. Next up, Automated Testing in Business Central 2nd edition is coming out. There were a few delays for various reasons. I'm showing on PackPub's website as of December 2nd that the current release date is January 14th, 2022. So fingers crossed that happens. I think the prior release date was December 9th, but it looks like it's pushed out to January 14th. That is another 300 pages. So I highly encourage this. I have a PackedPub.com subscription, whatever that is, so I can download the electronic versions for free, or I can use my tokens to get a copy of this book. And I believe I'm also going to receive a hard copy for review, so I can write a review of it from the publisher. So I'm looking forward to receiving that as soon as it's available. If you are developing in Business Central with AL, I highly recommend it. Especially if you're doing an outsource app, just having some basic automated tests to check for errors, I highly recommend it. It does take some learning, but super, super valuable in order to have some basic tests to check for regression errors or test new features. Now, you can go all in and do the ATDD, acceptance test driven development, where you write the test first and then develop against a test. I'm going to guess 99% of BC developers aren't that hardcore. I would love to be, but it requires some cycles and planning and design and thought to make that happen. I would love to do that. I don't know how much benefit I would get out of it for my smaller application, but probably good practice if you can manage it. If not, at a minimum, just write some automated tests for the new feature or change that you added in your application. Highly recommend it. So his first edition book is already outdated because of several changes that were made in AEL in the extension dependencies. So the second edition is welcome just to deal with the technical changes that have occurred since he first published it a few years ago. So there's probably a lot of other stuff going on, but that's kind of where I wrap up. And on a side note, this being kind of an I Need Coffee episode, this weekend I am going to a coffee training. Sounds like either a military boot camp or a animal dog training course, but I'm going to coffee training because although I drink coffee, I consume coffee, I am admittedly clueless about coffee. I can watch videos, but like I haven't done tasting, I haven't done brewing different techniques properly. So this is interesting. This is a company called Hasia Coffee Source out of Anaheim, California, I believe. And they are hosting a class for tasting, brewing, and roasting. So I'm going to be doing all three of those. It's a full day, 3-part class. And learn about tasting, apparently doing cupping with different coffees to hopefully learn how to taste and figure out what I'm tasting. Then doing a brewing with like Chemex or Hario or whatever the other pump one is. And, pour overs and different techniques and try to understand how that affects the coffee flavor. And then roasting. I don't plan on doing roasting, but it would be, I think I'm attending that one to better understand like what is the roasting process so that I can choose a coffee, understand light, medium, dark roast, and kind of what the lingo is at least. And kind of from the roaster's perspective, what are those words that they're saying and how should I be interpreting them as a coffee consumer? So just to kind of reduce my significant ignorance of the coffee world. So that's what I'll be doing this Saturday. So enjoy. I hope that was helpful and mildly entertaining. And we'll see how this turns into a podcast episode and if it works. And if you do listen to podcast or the video, like let me know. Give me some feedback and let me know what you think. I'm just working through it all. And so with that. There is dancing. Okay, so let me see if I can do an outro here. And we're going to do some video. And have a good one. Oh, it's not playing. Here we go.